Hi chaps, in this video I'm going to show you how to make this ribbed Mobius cowl. There's a link to the free written pattern in the description box. So let's get going with what you'll need. So most yarn will do, as long as it's not overly fancy. You'll need to be able to see the ribs, but almost anything will do. This is just some leftover. This is actually James C. Brett Marble Chunky, and I will be using a 6.5mm hook for this video, but yeah, I suggest you use whatever hook is suggested on the label of the yarn you're using. And then you will also need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle to sew in your loose ends at the end. So to start off, you will need to make a chain, and it'll need to be an odd number of chain stitches. So I don't need to make this as wide for the video as a full-sized Mobius, so I'll be using US terminology. So I'm going to do about 31, I think. So I'll do 31 chain stitches. You'll need to make a lot more. So that cowl I just showed you, that had 91 stitches in it, but for the purposes of this video I only really need to do about 31. It does need to be an odd number, so just make sure yours is an odd number, and the number you do will depend on your hook size and your yarn probably. So there are a few things that will make a difference to how many chain stitches you do. Just make sure it's an odd number. So I'm going to do 31. So I need one twist in my chain stitches, so you can see it's nice and straight at the moment. I'm going to need one twist in that chain there, in that chain foundation. So I'm just going to, the easiest thing to do probably is to twiddle the hook around, and then do a slip stitch into the first chain there. Then chain 3, and then double crochet into every chain all the way around. So I'll meet you back at the end of round 1. So just make sure you do a double crochet stitch in every chain stitch all the way around. And then you might want to count your double crochet stitches just to make sure there's an odd number of them. So I won't make you suffer by watching me do all the double crochets. So I've done 3. I'll carry on until I get to the end of the chain stitches. I've got to the end of round 1 and I've counted my stitches, including the chain 3 there. So as long as you've got an odd number, that's fine. So I've got an odd number, including that chain 3 there. So beginning of round 2, you're going to need to do a front post stitch onto that chain 3. And because the top of that chain 3 is not attached to anything, it's going to pull that out of shape a little bit. So don't worry about that. So front post stitch around that chain 3. And as you can see, I'm going to have to keep hold of that a little bit there just to keep it twisted like that. So then we're going to need to do a back post stitch on the next stitch, and then a front post stitch. So we're now alternating front post and back post stitches. So in the written pattern there are pictures that look a bit like this. I've used a different yarn in the pictures in the pattern, but so that's what it looks like to start with. So that first one there, because at the moment the corner is not anchored down, it will be when you get back round to here again. That'll be secured, but just at the moment it's a little bit odd. So keep going round, alternating your front post and back post stitches until you get to this point here where my thumb is. I'm going to do the rest of this off camera, and I'll meet you again when I get to here. I'm just finishing the end of this round, and this one's going to be a front post double crochet stitch. Then the beginning of the next round, it says slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 there, and then chain 1. And then I'm going to do a back post double crochet stitch onto that chain 3. So here we have a chain 1 and a back post double crochet stitch. They're kind of together. When we come round and start here again, you'll be doing a stitch that's going to cover both those together. So that chain 1 is going to be squished in with the post stitch. So I'll carry on doing my post stitches on this round. So front post double crochet, and then a back post double crochet. I'll keep going round on round 3 and meet you again when I get to the beginning here. So if you keep going, alternating your stitches, and I'll meet you again here. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the end of this round, and you can see it's progressing quite nicely. It's getting quite noticeably bigger at this point. So a few more stitches to do for this round. Right, so yeah, that's the end of round 3, and just need to do a slip stitch again. Now this is slightly different because we're not going to do a slip stitch into the top of the first stitch of the round, because if you do that you're going to separate these two bits which you want to keep together. There's a chain 1 stitch there and a back post stitch. You want to keep those squished together. If I did a slip stitch into the top of there, it would kind of separate those a little bit. So this time I'm going to do a slip stitch into the top of the next stitch there, and you'll see why shortly, why it makes sense. So I'm doing a slip stitch into that front post stitch there. If it cooperates. Right, here we go. So and I can still see that stitch there, but this slip stitch here has gone into the front post there. And now I'm going to chain 1 and do a back post stitch into the back post stitch there. So although I did a slip stitch here, I am going to be working into the first stitch of the round there, and when I do it I'm going to wrap my hook around both these bits. So you've got that chain 1 and the back post stitch. So I've got to ensure that my hook wraps around both of those bits. So this stitch here is going to look the same as that one did. I have a chain 1 and a back post stitch, and then we just carry on as normal. So you want a front post stitch on top of that one, into that one, a back post stitch onto that back post stitch, and you alternate your stitches all the way around. So let's do a front post stitch there, and yeah, just carry on all the way around as you did before, and you keep doing as many rows as you like, and it'll repeat exactly the same every time. So I'm just going to take my hook out for a moment so I can show you a little bit better. When you get to the beginning of the row round again, you'll want to do a slip stitch into the top of the front post stitch there, and then chain 1, then a back post double crochet that encompasses and includes both those bits there, the chain 1 and the back post stitch. there we go. So that's it really. When you've done your last slip stitch on the last round, I'll finish this round and show you what I do when I finish off, just to make it neat. So if you complete this round, and as many rounds as you like, I'm going to show you how I finish off. So I'm just finishing this round, and I've done the last post stitch there, and I need to do a slip stitch into that front post stitch there, not the back post stitch. So slip stitch there, put it nice and tight, pull up the loop. So this is finishing off, assuming you have done as many rounds as you wish to make. Find my scissors, cut the top of the loop there, pull out the working yarn there, find my yarn needle. Now this is how I finish off the edge. So I look to see where the slip stitch is, and I put the needle under the loop of the next stitch. And then I put it down into where the yarn came out from. Remember where I cut it? I'm now putting the needle down into where the yarn was coming out from that slip stitch, which is slightly tricky to see on this yarn. Right, okay, so it's around there. Actually, you can't really see it on this one very well, so this is a great yarn for hiding loose ends and that sort of thing. So now I need to hide that loose end, work it into some of the stitches. So if you were to examine the top stitches across the top of the stitches there, all you're going to see is the normal shape of loops at the top there, because of the way I threaded that loose end in. So as you can see, I've still got the two ends there to work in. I think this would look rather good with single crochet around the edge in a plain black. Would look rather good with this variegated grey, I think, in a full-size version. This actually would look really rather good if you had a doll. If you had a doll that wanted a cowl, would be rather good. Anyway, there we go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I shall see you in another video tutorial. And I've got other videos I do on a Friday, and yeah, so there we go, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.